Low quality fans of a high quality Bruins fan base. Not a dub. Not a dub. Oh boy, this sucks. This sucks. This video is going to be it's high quality fiance's birthday weekend, so I am not readily available for Bruins stuff. This is why this video is so late. But she's at the gym right now, getting her sweat on. So I've just figured I'd take advantage of the time because I did get to catch most of the game yesterday. Surprisingly, we were having some chill hours there before going out, so I did get to watch the large majority of it. None of the overtime, none of the shootout. I don't really care anyway. I don't want to care about that. But we're going to talk about a basic synopsis of the game and then kind of a look at where the team's at moving forward. So fun. This is going to be a heavily opinionated video. I think a lot of you are going to have agreements, disagreements, things of that nature. Feel free to put them in the comments. But there's one comment that I'm sure I'm going to get that guys, the Swayman stuff. I know I gave him an F for the first half of the season. I thought that was very reasonable. Some people argued with it. Totally get that. It's totally fine. But I thought that was reasonable because his first half of the season, the numbers and everything just weren't that good. And even though he had a couple of games at the end there where he was, a 9-10 plus save percentage, had been really good, I was like, no, the first half of the season as a whole, this was a total failure for him. He was excellent in this game, and we'll get there. But the Swayman lost us this game rhetoric that I'm seeing from some people, it's just, what is he supposed to do about 5 of these 6 goals? Right? Like, I just don't, really 5 of the 5 regulation. The shootout one. What is he supposed to do about any of these goals? Maybe one of them I could have seen him stop, but also the team was folding in front of him. So, I don't know. I think the Swayman stuff, he gave us a chance to win this. We'll get into it. But let's talk about a basic synopsis going into this game, what it was looking at. So, you lose 6-5 in a shootout against the Senators in one of your most important games of the season based on the context of it all. So, you come out unprepared for this game. Very important game. You get smacked around for the first 10 minutes. What? Doesn't matter. You fight back, which was excellent and somewhat aided by poor goaltending on the Senators' side. You spent the majority of the game being outplayed while making your goaltender have to make some saves that, a half dozen saves that you just sit there and go, I cannot expect you to make those frequently. Like, you do want the big save from an $8 million goaltender. So, yes, having to make this amount of saves, again, by the way, because it's 40-plus shots again. I think it's the 3rd game in a row, which, if I remember correctly, Ty Anderson said that it was the first time since 1966 that the Bruins have allowed that many shots, 3 games in a row. You notice how we're really starting to pile up the first time in 40 years, kind of, and it's always a negative stat? That's not good! That's not a good thing! Doesn't say good things about the team. It's fine, we'll move on. Again, one of the most important games of the season. You go into the last 4 minutes with a 2-goal lead, and you fold. You make poor choice after poor choice. You gave up, again, empty net for a lot of this, by the way. You give up the lead, and then you refuse to play your best overtime player for the entire 5 minutes of overtime as a coach's choice for Sacco, who is just further cementing himself as guys, I am not the answer, which the team he's working with anyway, I don't know if anyone's really the answer, but Sacco continues to do stuff where I'm I would love for him not to be the coach next year. You're not removing him this year, but I don't think you're sticking with him the following year. That would be kind of crazy to me. The way this all shakes out, the truth of it all, you lost 6 in a row, with a few of those games being against divisional rivals. You have 2 impressive, albeit unsustainable, games that you do win, which are very important games to win, but you play the style where your goaltender had to save your ass, and you got some timely goals in those. You have a 2-goal lead with less than 4 minutes remaining against a team that has multiple games in hand on you and is only 1 point behind you in the standings, and you gave it away. You have some of the worst 5-on-5 numbers in the league, both offensively and defensively. You have some of the worst special teams in the league, power play and penalty kill. You have huge contracts with underperforming players who are locked in and have to agree to be moved out if anyone would take them at all. You have a weak prospect pool with only a few guys who might be impact players at the next level, and those are all maybes. You have also a handful of truly pillar players. Pasternak, Swayman, McAvoy are going to be excellent Bruins for a very long time, making a full rebuild, down to the studs rebuild, very unlikely. And if it does happen, it means we are moving on from everyone, and we are starting at least 5 years of absolute pain, maybe much, much more than that. See the Buffalo Sabres. Okay, that's negative, that's sad, that's frustrating, that's not news to anyone listening, though. It's not optimistic, but it is also not news to anyone who's been watching this team this year. Also, beyond all of that, you have these not... How do I put this? You have these things happening that are not like statistical messes that are more fixable, right? Where it's just like, hey, we're not scoring enough. All right, we need more scoring talent. We need more finishing talent, things like that. You have things happening that are extremely difficult to pinpoint the exact reason for and point to there being something going on in the electric meatball rather than some sort of physical inability is one way to look at it. The thing I'm pointing out here, I didn't do cocaine. I just keep, like, my nose. I don't feel well. I think I've actually been very sick this past week, but kind of doing this, like, we have to be up here. We got to make it through. So I might crash really hard next week. We'll see what happens. You have now, according to Ty Anderson again, Ty Anderson's a great follow, man. Twitter, he runs with the Bruins, like, just great follow. 20 separate times this season, 20 separate times you have allowed, again, I'm using you as the Bruins, you have allowed a goal in the last 2 minutes of a period. This is the second year in a row that this is a major issue. I'm really going back to the first round series against the Panthers during our record-breaking season. Although there were a lot of injuries, our best finishing game guys were injured. Like, there's a whole conversation to be had there. 20 times this season. 20 times. That's absurd. That's ridiculous to have been doing this often. Last 2 minutes of a period, first, second, or third, you've allowed a goal. And it was a problem all of last year, too. Now, I mentioned there's two ways to look at that. One of them being there's a mental issue here. The team feels like they're going to give up the lead. They know they're going to give up a lead. They miscommunicate. They get jittery. They grip their sticks tight. They can't get it clear. And when they do, it's always icing. Swayman goes for this goalie goal when he's got a bunch of crowd in front of him, and people are going to criticize him for that. And I get it. It was not the right decision to make. But put yourself in his shoes as he watches his team flounder around him, unable to get a single clear over and over again. He goes, fuck it. Let me just see if I can get the puck out. I think that holds a lot of water. I think this team knows that it's not good at finishing games. And so in their head, they start to freak out. That's a problem. Hey, you know what also could be a way to look at this, which is also feels pretty accurate? You ever be playing against someone in any sport, which I haven't done in a long time because I'm old now, but you ever be playing against somebody in something that you are better than them? Like, you know you're better than them, right? And you're playing down to their level a little bit, having fun, but then it comes crunch time, and you're like, okay, let's go. The Bruins, whenever they're holding a lead against virtually any team in the league, virtually any team isn't fair, but anyone who's a playoff caliber team or even potentially playoff caliber team, they just pin us in our zone to end the game. We don't kill off games well at all. And I know that there's a mental aspect to it, but also it might literally just be highlighting how we are not as talented as these other teams. It could just be that, where that other team goes, it's crunch time, let's turn it up to the next level. And they do. And the Bruins cannot match it. It's been years of this, though. So I think the mental aspect really does come into play big time with this. Another thing I want to talk about before we get into how we're moving forward. The practice lines this morning, Zacha appears to be unavailable for some reason. I don't know if he was injured or what. Zacha was actually pretty good last night. Or yesterday day, I should say. Practice lines. Wallstrom, Geeky, Pasternak, Marchand, Potter, Letary, Frederick, Lindholm, Coyle, Brazeau, Beecher, Kostelik, Zadorov, Peak, Wotherspoon, Carlo, Lohrei, Osterley. Hampus Lindholm has a non-contact, but he's skating with the team. Callahan's there too. McAvoy, of course, is still on injured reserve. Swayman and Korpisalo in net. So, it's time to start the retool. This is how we're moving forward with this conversation. It is time. And let's have a real discussion about it. We're going to talk about the waving the white flag aspect of this, but give me a minute. I understand the Bruins are in striking distance of a playoff spot right now. But your top six right now with Zacha healthy has 3 top 6 guys, 2 guys who were in the AHL 3 days ago, and a versatile third liner. You have signed Elias Lindholm and Nikita Zadorov to egregious contracts that you now need to accept as basically working on a $7 million handicap, with the assumption that Zadorov is bringing a value of about $2 million and Lindholm is bringing a value of about $3 million as a 3C, because it literally looks like Elias Lindholm cannot be considered a top 6 center at this point in his career, which we're all totally shocked by. But Zadorov, this is obvious. So on the assumption that Lindholm is bringing $3 million of value, Zadorov is bringing $2 million, you do the difference of their contracts, you basically have a $7 million anchor that you're working with. You are looking for quick fixes with guys like Wahlstrom and Lettieri when they both should be out of the lineup while younger players get extended looks. That's just authentically true. This is what I would do. This is my plan. Doesn't have to mean it's right. This is what I would do. Swayman returns to a lower workload. He's genuinely keeping you in these games that I think it's better off we don't stay in. I am not rooting for losses. Let me be very clear. I'd love to see this team in the playoffs. I think it would be hilarious. But we got to focus on the long-term health, and a retool has to start basically mid-season like this. They would argue that they already started the retool. I fucking wouldn't argue that. Ooh, language. But I wouldn't argue that. You signed overvalued players to massive contracts. We'll talk there. But I wouldn't think we had already started the retool. It doesn't feel that way. The Marchand conversation has to happen now. Do you want to be a career Bruin or a rental for a true cup contender this season? That conversation has to happen because you have to start finding the best deal for him and see if anyone wants to overpay to jump on it early. I don't like this conversation. I think Marchand still belongs on the second line. I think he's been really strong this season given the expectations. I would prefer to keep Brad Marchand. That being said, you have to make difficult decisions. Trading Marchand absolutely does wave the white flag on the season. I understand that. But if he goes, hey, I want a chance at a cup, will you move me to a preferred team? I think the Bruins, A, should be respectful enough to do that, and B, can earn some real assets back for that. And we'll see how it shakes out in the long term. But I think an honest conversation with no fantasy involved is a conversation where Marchand might get moved at the deadline. It sucks to say. It is a real conversation to have. Everyone's name outside of that situation gets floated as available on the trade market. I do mean everyone. You won't move off your pillars with such as Swayman and McAvoy and Pasternak. We'll talk about that in a second. And the young players with potential, you're not going to move on from a Patra or a Lysell or a Merkulov at this point because we cannot be sellers. Again, we'll talk about that in a second. But you do offer everyone's name in a trade package and see what you can get away with. There are teams who will overpay for things. See if you can find any of those deals. Frederick, Coyle, and Wotherspoon would be the first line of these guys are readily available. I think someone might really value Wotherspoon, and I do think he's played himself out of a role here because I think his next contract is going to be decent, and the Bruins have a ton of money tied up in their defense already. I don't think that Wotherspoon's a long-term Bruin, which is a bummer because I really appreciated his efforts. Beecher also fits the younger player mold, but I'd see if anyone really values his athletic ability because he is going to be a lifelong fourth liner. So if someone sits there and has deluded themselves into thinking he has top six potential with his athletic ability, you jump all over that. Wahlstrom should be waived, Lettieri should be waived, Lysell and Merkulov should be brought up. Or if there's a different young player that someone's really interested in, bring him up. Riley Duran for one, although he's probably hasn't done enough to get moved up. But I understand Lettieri was roasting the AHL and doing great. He's also a 30-year, not going to fix our problems guy. You have to give extended looks to these younger players. It is very much time to do that. The pre-deadline focus is moving off any salary cap that you are able to. Being a buyer and giving up any long-term assets is not an option. Beecher is on his own island there in my mind. You want to put yourself in the best position to weaponize cap space for other teams at the deadline to gain assets to basically hold players for 2 years or less that teams try to move off of. The way that all shakes out is you try to move a player like Coyle and Frederick. You free up that cap space, and then if someone goes, hey, this guy's underperforming, we need to move him out so that we can bring in another player in a different trade or in the same trade in a three-teamer kind of thing. Can we utilize the cap space that you have for this next year or 2 years? I would do nothing longer than 2 years because you're hoping for a quicker retool. And you never know, sometimes those cap dump players really turn into something for you. See the Panthers in previous years. This is a really challenging thing. It means the trade doesn't look pretty. And it doesn't look like fun, and you probably have a player that you wish you didn't have. But if it's short term and you're weaponizing cap space to bring in more draft capital or maybe a younger prospect that might fit in, that's what you're doing that for. Having to do this without having any cap space to weaponize is closer to impossible than it is possible. You have to try to find who you can move out to utilize even even $6 million of cap space makes a massive difference when a team goes, hey, we'll retain. We just need you to move. We need to move 3 million of this off, or 5 million, whatever. You can get real assets for that. Take advantage of it. All of this, again, very negative. I understand that this does feel like throwing in the white towel early. But the Bruins need to lead 3 teams in points percentage while holding off 4 more who are right behind us just to make the wild card. This team has played 47 games and has told us who they are almost every single night. The majority of wins feel like a miracle. The majority of losses are ugly. Honestly, I'd prefer they go on a run and make the playoffs. I think that would be fun and honestly a little funny. I do think that would be funny. Hockey is entertainment at the end of the day, even if they don't stand a chance in that playoff series. But it's not what's right for a long-term look for this team and for a retool while we still have Pasta, Swayman, Marchand, and McAvoy. You have to consider really weaponizing their careers, and you're not going to be able to do it as currently constructed. Another thought on this that I see a lot of people talking about, this team is not in a position to do a Tkachuk for Huberdeau and Weegar kind of deal. They're on the other end of that deal. Like, I want that to be very clear. The Panthers also had a lot go right during that stretch with the waiver wire ads that turn into studs and undervalued players suddenly becoming great all at the same time. It's not a realistic approach for this squad to trade Pasta or McAvoy thinking you're getting the better player back. Because what you would be doing is what I thought, this is a mistake. You can go back and listen to my trade analysis of the Weegar, Huberdeau, and the Tkachuk trade. I understood the risks involved, but Panthers were getting the best player in the deal. Done. They won that trade. They obviously won that trade now, but they won that trade. You're playing the Flames in this deal. If you're moving Pastrnak out, you're very likely, because there's 10 players, maybe 15 who are better than Pastrnak in the league. Remember, think about how bad this team has looked and what Pasta is still managing to put up points-wise. That should say something. You are trading the better player in that package. That's a losing deal. It is. McAvoy, not at the same level, but likely a very similar situation. If you're trading McAvoy, you're probably trading the best asset of the deal, even with the contract. Be very aware of that. Be very aware of it. We see it in every single sport. Basketball, football, baseball. It is very rare for the team that trades the best player to be the one that won the deal. It's very rare for that. Now, there's long-term outlooks where you go, hey, that trade 10 years ago actually worked its way into a cup win eventually. The Joe Thornton trade, you could make that argument. The Bruins are not in that same position right now. The best course forward is to see what you can fix with in-house promotions and trying to weaponize cap space by moving a couple players out. It is a retool strategy over the next 2 seasons. That is your best option. Yes, there is a 30% risk that it completely falls on its face, and then you are stuck going full rebuild mode. Pastrnak and McAvoy will still have real value at the time. Will it be the same as the value now? No, probably not. You're right about that. So there are risks with this path. But in my head, it is the strongest way forward for a truly competitive team soon in those gentlemen's careers. I was really glad to hear Cam Neely talk about the being aware of that, the long-term success of the team. So the message to Sweeney, I very much hope, isn't to keep sinking us with big job-saving, in his case, job-losing contracts. If we looked like this, but without $12 million yearly for the next 6 years tied up in 2 huge off-season contracts, many would still be calling for Sweeney's job. But we'd also look across the pond and go, man, I'm glad we didn't sign Elias Lindholm and Nikita Zadorov. And if you looked at it objectively and calmly, you'd see the solution wasn't there this offseason. You would see that the team needed to be patient and find the correct fits, not just throw money at players who are the best available option. I've defended Sweeney for a long time, but I can't defend this season, not just because of the performance of the team, but his decision-making, making it far more difficult to fix it. He's brought in and paid for contracts that are truly negatively affecting the team. If I were players that I would like to keep around, Well, there's obviously the Pasternak, Swayman, McAvoy. Marchand if we can, but again, I'm going to have to come to terms with something there. I'm not entirely sure. I keep Patra. I keep Lysell. I just want to see if we can actually turn them into true NHL players. That's, with the current condition of the team, you kind of really got to hope for that. I would keep Geeky and sign him to an extension. Absolutely, I would. Kostelik's already signed, and I would keep him around. Laura, I want to keep around because I think at 26 years old, this guy's going to be a stud. I think it's going to be a long process for him, but I think he's going to be really good once he really figures some things out. Yeah, that's basically it. Carlo, I'd like to keep. He's having such a bad year that it's really hard to continue talking about that. But I am Carlo fan. That's basically it, though. I mean, Hampus, you're locked into. He's not getting moved regardless. Yeah, other than that, I'm pretty comfortable moving off everyone. Now, you need players to play next year. Otherwise, you truly did a full rebuild launch without moving off the best players. But, yeah, there's very few that are nailed to the studs in this one. This is, you start moving off of anybody who's really, you're able to move off of. Look, I know this is negative. I know it's not the optimistic view. But there's a reality to the situation. The team keeps telling us who they are. We got to start believing them eventually. During the 6-game I'm sitting there going, yeah, this team just doesn't have it. Again, I'm rooting for a run in a playoff spot. I really think that'd be fun. But I got to look at the whole, if I was the GM, right? If I had to make unpopular decisions, I would start this right now. You have told me all I need to know about you as a team. It is time to start minimizing the mistakes and to start working towards a better future. That's it. I'm a presidential politician at this point. Like, I'm candidate. That's what I am. I'm going to say things about how the future is going to be better. And I'm going to try to make it happen. I won't, but I'm going to try to make it happen. Yeah, I don't know. We have to believe the team when they tell us who they are over and over and over again. And so that's where we stand. We're going to have to make some really tough decisions. I don't know if Sweeney's the one to make it. I am really nervous about him trying to do something stupid to save his job. But we've got, the cards have been drawn. It's time to figure it out. So, yeah. Oh, and if anyone's wondering why I'm not wearing a Bruins jersey, it's because my buddy got me a Minnesota North Stars shirt, and I wanted to show it off. It looks pretty cool, right? I got good friends. Go Bees. Go Bees! Go Bees. And now it's time to say thank you to the high-quality inspectors. I appreciate each and every one of you. There's over 100 of you at this point. And I love doing these thank yous at the end, but I think we're reaching such a volume that I have to rethink this strategy because you're all so incredible and so supportive. But this is getting really long, and there's got to be a better way, right? But let's start the thank yous, of course, with the top line tier. Dampen, Chris and Erica, Negev79, Trial Exotic, Jeff McGugan, Quackin' Platypus, Andrew Peterson, Sean Kreider, JM, Zenin Noel DeGuy, Donald Shelton, Anakin Palpatine, The Rat 63, Lola Cattingsworth, EKM Productions, Moonlighter TV, Big Bad Bruin, The Bugman, Adam Ella, Jeff with a G, Tommy Braga, Roland 22, GD Viperworks, Len Cruz, Brock Nope, Han Slomo, Coach D, The Atomic Lizard, Bradley Johnson, Brett Arney, Pincent, and Nick Zatrullo. Thank you so much, each and every one of you. You're absolute legends of this channel, and you're very appreciated. And now, of course, to our all-star tier members. Lorenzo Wood, Jake Brower, Penny Pasta, Levi Catalani, Boston Stringler, Bagel, JG's 12, Mark S., Jacob Pratt, Nightmare Eco, John Kirk, Ann Hustis, Joel, Heil E. Coyote, Darren Woodbury, Abraxion, Michael DePaulo, Wolf Warrior, Vinny, Adrian Winter, Tupton D. Tashi, Bruin Smash, DeKingery, The Only Newts, A Tasty Snack, Doots42, and Jeremy. absolute stallions, every single one. Thank you for supporting the channel. Thank you for being a part of the channel. I cannot express my gratitude. Go Bees.